Hi there, Drutter here. It's May 26th, 2020, and today is day 72 of my lockdown diary. Before I get to a couple of stories that I want to talk about today, I'm going to show a couple of graphs and talk about this data. First is daily deaths. Now there's tons and tons of data, of course, you can follow, and I tend to follow deaths because deaths are a lagging indicator and they are a more reliable indicator because cases can more easily be manipulated. Of course, deaths too can be manipulated, and we see that China, of course, is underreporting deaths and the United States is overreporting deaths. But for the most part, the deaths across the world, statistics and data are somewhat reliable, at least the patterns are. And here we can see daily deaths going back from essentially the beginning. There was almost nothing, of course, and then it peaked around April 20th, somewhere around there. We peaked in the world death statistics, and daily deaths have been gradually decreasing since then with the lockdown measures. Now I think maybe what might happen as the lockdown eases up is that curve will begin to recurve upward. Not at all drastically like it did in March, of course, but it will curve back upward again. And that's when the media, of course, will say, oh my God, we got a second wave, lock it down again, all that kind of stuff, and things will be even worse than they are now during this first lockdown. That's, anyways, my fear, my prediction, I guess, what I think might happen. But just looking at this now, we can switch over to Sweden, and Sweden's daily deaths, that same data basically, but just for only Sweden. They, of course, haven't had a lockdown. And they only had some common sense measures, just a few things were closed, not very much. A few rules were put in place, not very much. Some travel restrictions, yes. But no real lockdown for them. Their economy continues, they're healthy, they're doing well, and their hospital did not crash. Their hospitals were intact. They did get slammed at one point, I guess, at the peak, but they have recovered, and it never destroyed their hospital system. The virus did never destroy their hospital system. So the media from the West, of course, anywhere except for Sweden generally, is saying, oh, their tactic is not safe, it's not working, it's not a good idea, it's whatever. But that's not true. If you look into it, the people in Sweden generally are happy. People who have lost a family member to this obviously are not. Actually, some of them are still supportive of it, but a lot of them, of course, are unhappy about the way things went for them. But as a whole, their society is doing well and is happy about the direction that their medical professionals have taken them. And as you can see there, it did peak around April 20th, the same as in the world. And then it has been gradually trending downward since then. But the thing with Sweden is they have no lockdown to lift. There's a few like small rules or whatever in place that they can ease off on, but there's not really any major lockdown to lift like there is in the rest of the world. China, as sure you've seen, was like welding people in the apartments to keep things under control there, and mass forced testing and all that kind of stuff there. And worse, people dying over there because of the police crackdowns. And so in Sweden, which is a very different environment politically and socially, their people have really shown that this can be done just using common sense a lot of the time. The people were given sort of the power to manage the pandemic themselves. They were told, this is information that we have about it, and they were given information as it became available, and they were told to do their best. And for the most part, it has worked really well. So we can switch back and forth between those two charts, the world chart and Sweden chart, and you can see they're very similar. So we'll see what happens as the world ends their lockdown. I think numbers will trend upward a little bit again, and that'll be seen as a second wave. But in Sweden, there's no real lockdown to lift. So I assume that that line, which appears to be trending downward, or at least is not trending upward anymore, is going to continue to flatten off and to level off, and they will see even less deaths per day going forward in Sweden until there's almost none, I think. So they will eventually eradicate it through herd immunity, which is their plan, and it does appear to be working. So That's just what seems to be going on in the world right now in terms of deaths. We are trending downward, but it will be moving upward, I think. Not just because the numbers will be fudged upward a little bit, especially by the USA to make it look bad, but also because there will be additional deaths. There will be. You can't just open up an economy during a pandemic and have nothing happen. But you cannot keep an economy locked down forever, because everyone will die if we keep the economy locked down forever. So we must open the economy at some point, and it's good to see that it is opening in a lot of places, but I'm just sort of worried about how the media and government are going to spin this. Now let's get into a couple of related stories. This is Dr. Vernon Coleman. He's a doctor that posts on YouTube about once a day. I think he's retired. I haven't followed him for very long. And this is his most recent video, although I don't know if it itself is all that remarkable. I haven't watched it yet. I just put it on the screen as an example. But it's called Coronavirus: Where is the Science Behind Social Distancing Rules? So obviously he is questioning some of the official narrative, but he presents very logically, very unbiased, and this guy is a well-respected, well-known writer and blogger, and he has been around for decades, literally, obviously, in the scene, and he is well-known and respected, like I said. So it's interesting that his view is not showing up. He's not being asked to come on the news and so on. This Dr. Campbell, you may remember, you may recognize from YouTube. He's also a British doctor who commentates on this topic. He is getting on the news all over the world right now. I nicknamed him early on Dr. Lockdown. He's very statist and very socialist, and just not healthy, not something I want to watch to get my non-biased information from. This Dr. Coleman is very well spoken, and he's been censored by YouTube repeatedly for just simply stating facts, and literally facts. He just cites scientific journals and peer-reviewed studies that have come out. So he is literally going directly to the data that is out there and trying to bring it to the people as objectively as possible. And when he is censored for doing so, he gets quite upset, and he doesn't get irate or loud or anything, but you can tell by the way he is talking that he is not happy with the way things are going right now in society, and he is he seems to be aware and awake that something is happening. And he says in his last video he doesn't go into conspiracy theories very often because he believes that most people just make mistakes. Well, that's a very political, nice way of saying it, but I think there is a lot more corruption than there is stupidity out there. I think that the corrupt rise to the top, not the stupid rise to the top. They like to hide behind pretending to be stupid, but they are corrupt is what they actually are. But anyway, he says he doesn't follow the conspiracy theories very often, but he is in agreement with those who believe that something is going on here. A conspiracy is happening here, he believes, and he gives 4 reasons in his previous video. So I'll link to his previous video, not the one on the screen, but his previous video down below about why he thinks there is a conspiracy going on right now in the world, in the behind the scenes, the powers that be, and he gives 4 very clear reasons why he believes that's the case. And speaking of people who believe in conspiracy theories, apparently 50% of Canadians believe in some kind of conspiracy theory and believe that their government is lying to them about the coronavirus pandemic. This article by The Province says it's staggering. Wow, they can't believe it. They can't believe that people don't believe them. Half of Canadians say government is hiding something about COVID-19, their poll said. Half of Canadians believe they're not getting the whole truth from their governments about COVID-19, a new poll suggests. Whatever, a new poll can suggest anything really, but this is just what the paper is telling us anyway. The message is what matters, not the poll itself, unless they're going to give a link to the poll so we can actually see if it was done properly and such, but I doubt it. Anyway, the study found that 50% of respondents feel that the government is hiding information or withholding information or lying about the coronavirus outbreak, which they say has killed thousands and ground the economy to a halt. That's, of course, only in Canada, that number, thousands. It's a little bit higher than that around the world, in the hundreds of thousands now. The article then goes on to say that many Canadians openly admit to entertaining conspiracy theories about the origin or the handling of the virus. And why is that? Why would so many people? The article seems to indicate that people maybe are mentally ill, or 50% of the population has just gone off their rockers recently, or some other. They kind of just leave it open, like what are people thinking, basically. The article says, but what people are thinking is they can see clearly that things don't add up. We are being lied to repeatedly, and even within stories in the mainstream media, or even within speeches given by government members like Trudeau, they will contradict themselves and not make sense within those stories. So there's many conflicting ideas, many conflicting rules even in place that are being put in place. And speaking of that, the rules aren't even laws. They don't have any laws in place around this social distancing. It's all rules. Of course, they give themselves the ability to enforce these rules by violence if necessary, and throw people in jail even if they are breaking rules, but they haven't made these rules laws, which I think also doesn't sit very well with people. The government is just making up rules now about things. This sector of the economy is going to close, or we're going to take control over this hospitals and food chain and all this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, their handling of it all is ridiculously poor, as it generally is. Government, is not usually the best way to do things. They don't do most things very well. Most things are done better by the free market. But anyway, this article pretends they have no idea why Canadians are mistrustful of the way that things are being handled, or maybe even entertaining conspiracy theories about the origin of this pandemic. Gee, why could that be? They really don't seem to be able to grasp that. But if you talk to anybody outside of the mainstream, it's a no-brainer. Of course, the government is either taking advantage of this crisis or is involved in it directly. That is clear to most people who can think objectively and can think outside the box a little bit and can think a little bit more independently from the mainstream, from that narrative that they've basically learned from the television and the radio and the newspaper, and from each other parroting that information back and forth to each other and making it seem more real to each other. They have that mainstream grasp over people's thoughts and therefore people's lives. The mainstream really is essentially telling people how to act and what to think and who to be and where to go and who to interact with and who they're allowed to talk to and in what way and what they're allowed to buy. This is becoming very, very, very controlled, and us, the people within this controlled system, almost cannot see the control because it's been so pervasive for so many years, and it's just coming day after day, new measures, new controls, new rules to obey, and we're just blindsided by it. We're reeling from it, really, I think, and we're having a lot of trouble just getting back to any sense of normalcy, and they're dangling that normalcy carrot in front of us and telling us this is the way back to normal. We know you're desperate for it. We know that you are, it's been too long, it's been too many weeks. You're trying to get some sort of balance back in your lives, and here it is. This is the way forward. You have to go and do contact tracking. You have to go and do, basically put your hands into the handcuffs, put your neck into the noose, they say, essentially. But we're not going to tighten it all the way. Don't worry. Don't be paranoid, they say. Just let us do what we need to do to keep you safe. And if you don't panic, everything will be fine. So just place your head in the noose and we're going to tighten it around your neck. Just don't panic while it goes on. Okay, there, it's on now. And everything's fine still, right? That's how it feels to me. It feels like they're slowly restricting what people can do, slowly taking away people's rights and giving themselves more and more powers, and changing literally the way that people think. The people that are voting and the people that are making decisions supposedly about their leadership in this country, their minds have literally been changed by those people. So the voting process, I don't even think really makes sense anymore in an age where people are literally Stockholm syndrome which is where people literally fall in love with their captors. I feel like that's what's happened here in the world. We're literally in love with our leaders that have literally led us astray here. And now 50% of Canadians, at least, are aware that something is not right. The government is lying. And a large portion of people are entertaining theories about conspiracies. Conspiracies, of course, are just secret plots. We know that conspiracies happen all the time, and they always have and always will. So to theorize about that is not wrong, although it has been made into a thing associated with mental illness or, I don't know, maliciousness or something. But to theorize about conspiracies has been considered to be very, very wrong. But now a large percentage of Canadians, and I dare say the rest of the world probably, is entertaining theories about conspiracy because it appears a conspiracy is happening here. Here's another article where Trudeau is saying there will be no return to full normal until there is a vaccine. Until, not unless, but until. It is coming. There is a vaccine. And they are pushing it through rather rapidly and removing all safety measures and such. That it's just going to be pushed right through. It's going to be even more dangerous than your average vaccine, which is not a good thing in the first place. And now here we have what needs to happen before we can all get vaccinated for COVID-19. Well, I'll stop it right at the title there. Here's what needs to happen before we can all get vaccinated. We can all get vaccinated. Wait, what? They're making it sound like, well, this is what has to happen before we get what we want, before we get what we need, before we get all vaccinated. All of us have to get vaccinated. That's the point of this. All of us have to get vaccinated. And he said in the previous one, Trudeau said there will be no return to full normal. So they are constantly dangling that. You can't get back to normal. We won't let go. We won't let go of the economy. We won't let go of your rights. We won't stop manipulating you. We're going to keep you in fear until there is a vaccine. And then, here's what needs to happen before we can all get vaccinated. Wow, you see how this is happening? First they say, well, we really have to all get that vaccine. And then they say, well, this is what has to happen before we all get vaccinated. Well, this is really just drilling into people's minds the idea that all of us are getting vaccinated. A year ago, if you had done a video, in fact, some people probably did, if you had done a video saying, guys, I think the government's going to vaccinate us all. They're going to get this special vaccine. They're going to develop it with Bill Gates and other Monsanto and stuff, and then they're going to inject us all with it, right? You would have been laughed at. You would have been tossed right out. You would have been censored on YouTube for sure, because you're not allowed to even pretend to talk about things like that, right? Because it could never happen. But here it has happened. Here it has happened. And now they're saying we all have to get vaccinated. All of us, right? They're setting it up. I've been saying it since the very beginning of this vlog series for mandatory vaccinations. Here's what has to happen before we can all get vaccinated for COVID-19, because there will be no return to normal until that happens. Until that happens. Not if that happens, but until that happens. So the plan is, and has been for quite a while, they're developing a vaccine. It's being pushed through. It may have already been created. Who knows? It's being rushed through. They're saying it's going to be ready in months instead of years. It's supposed to be 5 to 10 years for most vaccines, if done properly. And they're never actually even done properly. But they're going to do this in 5 to 10 months instead of 5 to 10 years. And we're going to have a vaccine that is going to be pushed on the population. And they're already setting that up, and they have been from the beginning. With things like, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Oh wait, they didn't say that. They said, you're either with us or you're with the virus. Basically, didn't they? We're all in this together. That's what we're all in this together means. And another iteration of we're all in this together is, if you don't take the vaccine, it's not as effective for those of us who do. Or if you don't take the contact tracking on your mobile device, it's not as effective for the rest of us who do, right? We're all in this together. If you're not with us, you're with the virus. If you're not with us, you are a terrorist, basically, is the message. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your support. Now you're looking at a awkward shot of my medicine patch here. I can't show you the plants. I can't even mention what kind of plants they are, even though we have had legalization of this plant and this substance in Canada. We aren't allowed to talk about it on YouTube, and so I've had a lot of videos taken down recently where I just showed a leaf or a plant briefly, or I said the word, the C word, C-A-N-N, you know the word. I'm not allowed to spell it, I'm not allowed to say it. This video can and will be yanked by the algorithms or just by snitches that want to report it, but there is nothing in this video about that plant other than the fact that I am being censored on YouTube for saying it. So this is just notification that you won't see all my material here on this channel anymore on YouTube if that's where you're watching it. And I'll put links down below to LBRY and other free market, decentralized, and censorship resistant platforms that I've been uploading to recently, where you can follow all my content. Thanks again for watching, and talk to you soon. Stay well.